ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं श्रीकृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णया कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्नि गौरातुसे नमः। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna, everybody. So we'll continue our discussion on chapter 7 of Shrimad Bhagwatam. The title of the chapter is The Son of Drona Punished. So as we have learned yesterday, in the beginning of this chapter, the 7 verses, they are connected actually the chapter 6, previous one, So where Vyasadeva was feeling much more hopeful now. After the Narad Muni left, then he sat down in his ashram, surrounded by beautiful berry trees, and began to meditate. And while meditating, he thought of Lord Krishna. Then something amazing happened. So let me bring up my PowerPoint also.
Prabhuji, I think for actually my side, your voice is little low.
Okay, let me see. Okay now?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let's see. Okay, so I'm gonna share the PowerPoint also. All right, so this is what we discussed in the beginning of the chapter, that I will briefly mention about it, and then we'll move forward on this chapter, okay, from where we left yesterday. So here, while meditating, something amazing thing happened to Vyasadeva. He saw that Lord Krishna was in control of the whole material world. So he also saw that the people are actually really happy spirit soul, but actually the dark, cloudy material world is covering them. So much so that they have forgotten who they are. Means they have forgotten their identity. and they have become really miserable. So then Vyasadeva thought, now I know what is happening. The secret is that if the people serve Lord Krishna, when they do the devotional service to Lord Krishna, then he can protect them from the dark, cloudy material world. So, which is his external energy. This dark, cloudy, gloomy things is his external energy. So he decided, he said, I will write about Krishna, which is also instructed by Narad Muni. And he realized that while he was doing meditation. So Krishna, he will say, I will write about Krishna and I will call that book as a Shrimad Bhagwatam. So whoever hears these stories will surely love Krishna so much that they will want to serve him, and then they will never feel sad. Okay. So therefore Vyasadeva wrote down the pastime of Lord Krishna, and then what he did, he taught to his son Sukadev Goswami, that blue boy. So Vyasadeva wrote down the pastime of Lord Krishna and then taught this to his son Sukadev Goswami, who was already free from the dark, cloudy material world. He was already happy. He was Atmaram. He was self-satisfied. So then Sutta Goswami was amazed to know that even though he is Atmaram, so his question was, he said that I shall now begin the transcendental narration of the Bhagavatam. Okay, so it all began when the battle of Kurukshetra, okay, between the Kaurava and Pandavas ended, and then this Mahabharata starts. So the Duryodhan was, you can see here in the Kurukshetra war, Duryodhan was lying on the ground with a broken spine and mourning before his Kaurava army and lost the battle. So at that time, what happened? This is Aswathama was the son of Dronacharya, a Brahmana, and he was also on the side of Kaurava. So he cannot bear to see Duryodhan so defeated. He thought while seeing Duryodhan lying on the ground, Aswathama angrily went to the Pandavas camp, and then what he did there, he saw these 5 poor defenseless sons of Pandava. They were sons of Pandava and Draupadi. They were sleeping there in their bed, and he chopped up their head. Then he brought those heads to Duryodhan and showed his master. He thought that his master will be happy, but Duryodhan did not approve this thing. He disapproved this cowardly act, and he wasn't pleased in the least. So meanwhile, Draupadi, the mother of, this is the scene where he killed his 5 sons. Then this is the scene where Draupadi, the mother of Pandavas, had just discovered that her sons were killed. So she was so overcome with grief that she cried and cried. So her husband came and pacified her, and her husband promised that, okay, I will bring, the head of that person who had killed your son. So saying this, Arjuna dressed in his armor, prepared his weapon, and then set off in the chariot with Lord Krishna being a chariot driver, okay, to chase after Aswathama. Now Aswathama on the other side, he saw Arjuna at a distance coming towards him at a great speed. So he also quickly boarded his own chariot and tried to run away, But what happened? His horses were tired. So that's why he could not go any further. So now it was a dilemma from him, problem for him, what to do. So to save his life, he desperately chanted mantra and invoked the Brahmastra, fiery weapon. And then when this fiery Brahmastra arrow was released, a glaring light spread in all directions and began to burn the whole world. So Arjuna at that time became very fearful, and then he prayed to Lord Krishna. So we covered up to this point yesterday. So now let's see how Arjuna is praying to Lord Krishna, because he himself was not aware of that what to do, because there was a fiery or glaring effulgence coming out, and he doesn't know from where it is coming out. So in the beginning, to ask Arjuna's help, Krishna's help, Arjuna prayers to Lord Krishna. Arjuna is saying, oh my dear Lord Krishna, you are the supreme personality of Godhead. You are all powerful, omnipotent. There is no limit to your different energies. Therefore, only you can protect your devotees. So please try to protect me, he says. Arjuna was actually aware of the Krishna's transcendental quality, right? Because he experienced that during the war, Kurukshetra, between the Pandava and Kaurava. So he knew the Krishna's transcendental qualities. Then Arjuna further says to Krishna, you are always situated in eternal bliss and transcendental knowledge. You descend as an incarnation to remove the burden of the world and to benefit your devotees and friends, especially those who are your exclusive devotees. Engage in your remembrance always. So, oh my Lord, please, how is it that this dangerous effulgence is spreading all around? Where does it come from? I do not know. I do not understand it. Please guide me. So here we can see the example. Arjuna is setting up a good example how to approach Supreme Personality of Godhead. First of all, he prayed Lord Krishna. Prayed means he glorified the qualities of Krishna. And then he presented his dilemma, and he requested for knowing why and what is happening, and why he is in danger like that. So this is the way one should approach Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, as well as also spiritual master, because spiritual master is manifestation of Lord Sri Krishna. Lord Krishna helps from inside as a super soul, but from outside he helps as a spiritual master. So then Krishna responded to Krishna's prayer, and now Krishna is saying that this is the act of Vaswathama, son of Drona. He has released the Brahmastra, okay, and he does not know how to retract the glare. So he helplessly done this to save his life. So here, a little note that Brahmastra is similar to modern nuclear weapon, but the difference is that the atomic bomb is a gross type of nuclear weapon, whereas Brahmastra is a subtle type of weapon produced by chanting the mantra. So that is the difference. We can say it is similar in one sense because it is used for destruction. But the difference is that the nuclear weapon is gross, just like our body is gross, made up of 5 material elements, right? Earth, water, fire, air, ether, like that. But our subtle body, which is made of mind, intelligence, ego, which we cannot see, right? Similarly, the nuclear weapon is gross, but this Brahmastra, which is operated by the subtle effect, means by chanting the mantra. So that is the difference. So basically, it is a different science, and formerly such science was cultivated in the land of Bharatvarsha. That's why somebody people say that, right? Mera Bharat Mahan hai. Great India. India is great like that. So, so an expert chanter of mantra knew how to apply the weapon as well as how to retract it. But the son of Dronacharya, Aswathama, who made use of this subtle science, did not know how to retract it. So Arjuna, Krishna says, therefore, O Arjuna, only another Brahmastra can counteract this weapon. Since you are expert in the military science, subdue this weapon's glare with the power of your own weapon. So hearing this instruction from Krishna, Arjuna touched the water for purification. And after circumambulating Lord Sri Krishna, he cast his Brahmastra weapon. He released his Brahmastra's weapon to counteract the Aswathama's weapon. Now, when the rays of the two Brahmastra combined, a great circle of fire, like the disk of the sun, covered all outer space and all planets. So the heat created by these Brahmastras was similar to the fire exhibited in the sun globe at the time of cosmic annihilation, means destruction. So the atomic bomb explosion can at least, they blow up only one globe, but the heat produced by the Brahmastra can destroy the whole cosmic creation. And all the population of the three world, three world means upper, lower, and middle. So upper means this heavenly planet, lower means the hellish planet, and the middle one is like our Bhumandala, So these are all the three world was scorched by the combined heat of weapons. Everyone was reminded of the Samvartak fire. It's like a fire which is used during devastation. Also, if you know the Vrindavan Leela, when Indra, was angry when they started doing the Govardhan Puja, and actually it was Indra Puja, but because of Krishna told the Vrajvasi that let's don't worry about Indra, we should worship Govardhan. So Indra was not happy, and he sent Samvartak cloud at that time, which can rain heavily, So that Samvartak, in that sense, it is used here also. But this is in form of a fire. In that pastime, it was in fire, in form of a rain cloud. So thus, seeing the disturbance of the general populace and the imminent disturbance of the planet, and following the instruction of Krishna, Arjun immediately retracted both Brahmastra weapon. So that way, Arjuna fulfilled the desire of Krishna to save the whole cosmic creation. So now, after that, this Aswathama was really helpless because he cannot go any further. And Arjuna on this other side was very angry. He was appearing very angry, his eyes blazing like two red balls, like of copper. He arranged, and so what he did, he arrested actually and bound Aswathama with the rope like an animal. So Aswathama actually was a bona fide son of Dronacharya and Krupi, who were Brahmanas. But because he had degraded himself by doing this act of killing the sleeping children, it is an act of an aggressor sort of. So, since he degraded himself to a lower status of life, it was proper to treat him as an animal, and that is why Arjuna bound him with the ropes. Now, after binding Aswathama, Arjuna wanted to take him to the military camp. So Krishna looking on with his lotus eye, spoken to Arjuna in an angry mood. Now here interesting thing is that both Arjuna and Lord Krishna are described here in an angry mood. But Arjuna's eyes were like balls of red copper, whereas eyes of Lord Krishna were like lotus. Lotus is so smoothing, you know. So this means that the angry mood of Arjun and that of Lord are not on the same level. You know. So Krishna's anger is not like the anger of conditioned living being, because he is absolute. His anger and pleasure are the same. His anger is not exhibited in the mode of material nature. Therefore, even if he is angry, the object anger is bliss. So here the Acharya gives the definition of, you know, why Krishna's anger was not like a conditioned soul, because he is absolute. For him, anger and pleasure is same thing, like that. So now Lord Krishna is saying to Arjuna, what is he saying? He said that you should not have a mercy on Aswathama, even though he is a Brahmana, Brahmabandhu. Because, why? He has killed innocent boys in their sleep. Aswathama was a son of Brahman, but he did not have a qualities of Brahman because of the act that he did. Therefore, Lord Krishna was supporting killing. Moreover, he violated religious principle. Specifically, he violated the code of religious war. You know, one who knows the principle of religion does not kill an enemy who was, you know, sleeping, being careless, intoxicated. There are some rules, you know, in fighting. So, which Aswathama did not follow. Also, he should not kill a boy, woman, foolish creature like that, surrender soul, you know. So these are the rules of conduct of code in religious war. Formerly, in a war, you know, a battle, when they were fighting, they fought on the principle of religion. So murderer is punished on a death sentence by the state is good for the culprit, because in his next life, he will not have to suffer for his act of murder. So this is like a punishment, state punishment also like that. You know, if somebody murders someone, he needs to be also punished death sentence. Now, furthermore, Krishna says to Arjuna that I have personally heard that you promised Draupadi that you would bring forth the head of the killer of her son. And Aswathama is a murderer of your family who has dissatisfied his master Duryodhana also. So kill him immediately. That was the opinion of Krishna, he says here. But as a matter of fact, Krishna was testing Arjuna in following, whether he's following his religious principle properly or not, because these religious principles are very complex also. But Arjuna passed the test here. He did not like the idea of killing him, although Aswathama was a heinous murderer of Arjuna's family member. Arjun considers that the son of his great teacher, you know, because he happened to be a son of his teacher, Dronacharya. Arjuna learned this military art from Dronacharya, you know. So Lord Krishna encouraged Arjuna outwardly just to test Arjuna's sense of duty. And Lord Krishna puts many of these pure devotee in the same condition like that. He given the example that many times Lord Krishna tests his pure devotee, you know, just to magnify their sense of duty. So the example is given is like gopis were tested also by Krishna many times in the Vraj Leela. Similarly, Prahlad Maharaj was tested, you know, and similarly Haridas Thakur, who was chanting 300,000 times Krishna's name. He was also tasted. So these are some of the examples that is given that Krishna taste is pure devotee, to magnify the sense of their duty. So all pure devotees actually come out successful in respective taste by the Lord. So then after Arjuna took Aswathama to the camp where all these people were there also, Arjuna reached the military camp with Krishna, and then he entrusted Aswathama to give punishment to Draupadi. He told Draupadi that here is your culprit, now you tell me what to do with him. So that is what Arjuna did. He brought Aswathama before Draupadi. Now, here is the thing. When Draupadi saw Aswathama, who was bound with ropes like an animal, due to her female nature and due to her being naturally good and well-behaved, cultured woman, she showed him due respect as a Brahman. So nowadays also, even to date, we can see in Hindu family, a woman always give proper respect to Brahmanas, So even though he is a murderer. So, but here, Draupadi by nature, he could not tolerate Aswathama's being bound by ropes and being devoted lady. She said, oh, release him, release him. She used the word muchyatam, muchyatam in Sanskrit, please release him, because he is a Brahman, and not only Brahman, but he is son of our Guru. So this shows that a devotee of Lord can tolerate all sorts of trouble personally, but still such devotees are never unkind to others, even to enemy. So these are the characteristics of one who is pure devotee of the Lord. So this is very good lesson to learn from this episode that, Draupadi here shows this example of a pure devotee. Even though her children were killed by him, he still saw her compassion towards him. So then Draupadi also reminded Arjuna that you had learned the military art, how to throw arrows and the confidential art of controlling weapon from Dronacharya, who is his father. So this control of weapon is by Vedic mantra, which is the transcendental science of sound that you have learned from Dronacharya. So it is also said in Ramayana that Maharaj Dasrath, the father of Lord Ramchandra, used to control arrow by sound only. You may have heard that thing. By the sound, when there is a story of what was his name? Sravan. His father and mother was blind. So Sravan was used to carry them, on all pilgrimages. So one time it so happened that his parent became thirsty. So he put them at some place, safe place, and then he went to a nearby lake where there was a water, so he can get water. So while he was getting water in his pot, there was some noise. So with that noise, sound, Dasrath had released his arrow. See, he don't have to see the object. Just based on the sound, and then Sravan died. So, this is a long story, but just wanted to point out that Dasrath have a capacity using that Sabda Bedi Bhan, they call it. The arrow he released with the only sound without seeing the object. So it was like a science, he could pierce his target with his arrow by only hearing the sound without seeing the object. So this is finer military science than that of gross material military weapon used nowadays. So Arjuna was taught all this from the Dronacharya, and therefore Draupadi wished that Arjuna feel obliged to Acharya Drona for all these benefits. And in the absence of Dronacharya, his son was his representative. That was the opinion of the Draupadi here. All right. Then you can see Draupadi further explains that Dronacharya is still existing. On what base? Being represented by his son here. And his wife Kripi, mother of Aswathama, did not undergo a sati with him because she had a son. So in either case, Aswathama was the representative of Dronacharya. And therefore, killing Aswathama would be like killing Dronacharya. That was the argument of Draupadi against, she don't want to kill Aswathama in that respect. So here she explains that Krupi, Aswathama's mother, did not become a sati. There was a custom that when husband dies, sati also dies with him. He, sati himself, the wife herself go to the funeral pyre and burn with her husband. So that was kind of a custom. But here she did not do because of her son was alive. Now, Draupadi requesting two things from Arjuna here. She's saying, please do not give any grief to this glorious family, Brahman family. And they are your guru. They are always respectable. They are worshipful. And next thing, Draupadi told Arjuna that do not make the wife of Dronacharya, Kripi, cry. Because, Draupadi experiencing herself because her children was killed by Aswathama. But she is so compassionate that do not make Kripi, sonless. Because if you kill Aswathama, then Kripi will lose her son also. So because Draupadi is experiencing this thing, he is saying Arjuna not to do this thing. So now Draupadi did not want to put the wife of Dronacharya in the same position of childlessness, from the point of motherly feeling and also from the respectable position held by the Kripi, the wife of Dronacharya. So now Draupadi also considered another aspect. What did he say? That act of killing Aswathama would be an offense, and because of that offense, our family may have to suffer in future. So she also expressed that fear, So by all means, Draupadi did not support killing of Aswathama, So now Maharaj Yudhishthir was also in that camp. So Maharaj Yudhishthir kind of agreed. He will fully supported, Yudhishthir fully supported the statement of Draupadi, which were according to the principles of religion and were justified, glorious, without duplicity. And also Nakul, Sahadev, Satyaki, Arjun, Krishna, and all the ladies also agreed with Yudhishthir. Means they were all in one side. However, Bhim, angrily disagreed with all of them. And he recommended killing of Aswathama, who had murdered, sleeping children for no purpose. So Bhim was very angry and he disagreed with that. So now what to do? This is a dilemma here, right? So after hearing the words of Bhim, Draupadi and all others, and seeing the friend Arjun face, Krishna began to speak. he exhibited his four, he became Chaturbhuj. And then, you know, uh, he said to, actually, his idea is now, both Bhim and Draupadi had opposite views about killing Ashwatthama, right? Bhim wanted him to be immediately killed, whereas Draupadi wanted to save him. And in order to prevent both of them, Lord manifested another two arm. Seeing Arjuna was perplexed about what to do with Ashwatthama, Lord Sri Krishna voluntarily took up the matter just to make a solution. So now, with a smiling face, Lord Krishna said to Arjuna, okay, he says that a friend of Brahman, means Brahmabandhu, is not to be killed. But if he is an aggressor, what is aggressor means? He must be killed. The reason because he murdered the sleeping children, so that's why he is aggressor. Now, all these rulings are in the scripture and you should act accordingly. You have to fulfill your promise to your wife and you must also act to satisfy Bhim and me. So, here Krishna is giving some direction to Arjuna and how to use all these injunctions of scriptures, and what action should he take. So Arjuna was perplexed, means he was really thinking about, because Aswatthama was to be killed as well as not to be killed, by different persons. As a Brahmabandhu, Aswatthama was not to be killed, but as an aggressor, according to the Manusmruti, an aggressor, even though he be a Brahman, is to be killed. But there is another ruling, is that if an aggressor is without weapon, which here Aswatthama was without weapon, without his chariot, cannot be killed. So besides that, Arjuna had to keep the promise that he has made before Draupadi, just to pacify her. And he also had to satisfy both Bhima and Krishna, who advised killing him. So we can see here, Arjuna was really under the dilemma what decision he has to take, because everybody is giving different opinion. At the same time, they were citing different scripture behind it. All right. So let's see how now Arjuna gonna act. Okay, and that action is shown here in the slide. Then thinking about Aswatthama, okay, so Arjuna had thought of, and also he understood the motivation of Lord Krishna, because Lord Krishna and Arjuna, they are so close to each other. He understood the motive of Krishna also. So thinking about all the argument, Arjuna could understand the meaning of the Lord, and thus with his sword he severed hair as well as the jewel from the Aswatthama's head, which you can see. Because Aswatthama was born with a jewel in his head, which is giving him a strength, which is very useful to him to keep his transcendental quality. So when Arjuna severed his hair and jewel from the head of Aswatthama, this was as good as cutting off his head, and yet his life was saved for all practical purposes. Okay. So now Aswatthama had already lost his bodily luster, having lost the jewel from his head. He lost even more strength. Then after he was unbound and driven out of the camp, So we can see this act of Arjun is thus being insulted, humiliated. Aswathama was simultaneously killed and not killed by intelligence of Krishna and Arjuna. Because sometimes for a Kshatriya, even humiliate Kshatriya is sometimes equal to the death of that person. So in the end, it says that the cutting of hair from his head and depriving of his wealth and driving him from his residence are the prescribed punishment for the relative of a Brahman, Brahmabandhu. So there is no injunction for killing the body. That is the conclusion of this chapter. And at the end, what happened thereafter? The sons of Pandu and Draupadi, overwhelmed with grief, performed the proper rituals for the dead bodies of their relatives. So this is the thing. So as a summary, then I will tell you some of the things beginning from like chapter 6 and 7. We learned about Narad when he was tired in the previous chapter. He took the rest, took the bath, and drank some water. Then Vyasdev also gave a clue that how one can get life is perfect. So by hearing Shrimad Bhagwatam. And then we knew the story about Vyasdev teaching his son Sukadeva Goswami Shrimad Bhagwatam. Then we also heard about this story that Aswathama killed the sons of sleeping son of Draupadi. And then Arjun was chasing Aswathama. He brought back him to the camp. And the final, after so many arguments and everything, after listening, he took the action here, which you can show this in slide. So in this chapter, basically, you have learned so many characters, which is worth knowing it. One of them is Yudhishthir, Bhim, Arjun, Nakul, Sahadev, Draupadi, Aswathama. So Aswathama is son of Drona. He was born with a jewel on his forehead, giving him strength, beauty, and fame. And he was general of Kaurava army also. Draupadi, wife of Pandavas, daughter of King Drupad from Panchal Desh. And you all know that Yudhishthir, Bhima, Arjuna, Sahadev, they were all 5 Pandavas. Lord Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead, his friend and chariot driver of Arjuna. So many nice things given in this chapter. So many nice lessons also that we can learn about how the devotee should behave. So I will stop here and take any questions or comment that you have. Thank you. Hare Krishna.